All right, let's get right into this explainer and tackle the rising anxiety around credit card debt in India by looking directly at what the law actually says. Look, millions of us rely on credit cards every single day for everything from groceries to surprise medical emergencies. But when financial disaster hits and you just can't make those monthly payments, well, that's when the real panic sets in. Suddenly you're dealing with overwhelming stress, the fear of legal action, and of course those dreaded recovery agents. So today, we are going to break down exactly what the Supreme Court of India says about your rights, and we're going to cut right through the noise and the fear tactics with pure, structured facts.
So before we even get into the weeds here, we've got to address the absolute biggest, most terrifying question that keeps defaulters up at night. Honestly, it's the #1 thing people search for when they miss a few payments, and it's definitely fueled by aggressive phone calls from collection agencies who might, implicitly threaten police action.
Deep breath, everyone. The crucial point here is that an ordinary credit card default is absolutely not a criminal offense. You cannot be arrested simply for failing to pay your bill. The Supreme Court has repeatedly reinforced that the simple inability to repay a debt does not automatically turn you into a criminal. Unless your situation involves deliberate, intentional deception, we're talking fake documents, identity theft, or forgery, you are dealing with a civil matter, not a criminal one. So take that deep breath. The police are not coming to lock you up over a missed minimum payment.
Okay, here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to cover 1. Understanding default, 2. Supreme Court protections, 3. The lawful recovery process, 4. Fighting harassment, and 5. Settlement versus restructuring.
Section 1. Understanding default, the legal reality of unpaid dues.
Look, being a defaulter sounds like this terrible, scary word, right? But legally speaking, it's literally just a financial classification. It's usually caused by incredibly common life events like a job loss, a sudden business downturn, or a medical emergency. It is not a moral failure, and it's certainly not a criminal label. When you continuously miss that minimum amount due, banks just shift your account into an overdue status. Honestly, understanding this is the first step to removing the stigma. It's a financial problem with a legal and financial solution and nothing more.
Moving right along to Section 2, Supreme Court protections, the shield against abuse.
This is where things get really interesting. The ultimate legal precedent for all of this actually comes from a 2007 landmark case, ICICI Bank Limited versus Prakash Kaur, where the Supreme Court came down heavily on financial institutions. They made it crystal clear. Just because a borrower has defaulted, a bank cannot bypass the legal system and take the law into its own hands. Recovery absolutely must happen through the courts or authorized channels. Using intimidation is entirely off the table.
It is so vital for us to separate the facts from the fear-mongering here. Banks and their agents are strictly prohibited from using any of these coercive tactics against you. Financial hardship does not erase your human dignity. Recovery agents cannot use physical force. They cannot show up at your door at odd, unreasonable hours. They absolutely cannot publicly humiliate you by calling your boss, your friends, or your neighbors to pressure you into paying up. And any use of abusive language, that's a direct violation of Supreme Court guidelines and RBI regulations.
All right, Section 3, lawful recovery process, the actual timeline.
Let's be real. The bank just wants its money back. They don't want a massive, lengthy legal battle. So it starts off relatively small with simple SMS and email reminders in the first week. By the first month, you're going to see late fees and penalties hit the account, which obviously compounds the debt. By month 2, you will receive professional, and again, they must be professional, recovery calls. It really is until around the 3rd month that you might see a formal legal notice, which eventually leads to civil court proceedings if everything else completely fails.
Now, while those initial stages are just polite nudges, receiving an actual legal demand requires your immediate attention before any civil suits get filed. Burying your head in the sand is quite literally the worst thing you can do at this stage. A legal notice means the bank is actively preparing to use the court system. This is your cue to open up a dialogue, explain your financial hardship, and start negotiating, because eventually the courts will be the ones evaluating all the evidence, the loan documents, and your entire communication record.
Section 4. Fighting harassment, your legal weapons.
Under Indian consumer protection laws, you retain all of these fundamental rights even if you owe money to a massive financial institution. You are still a consumer. You have the right to privacy, meaning absolutely no public disclosure of your debt. You have the right to fair treatment, completely free from any misrepresentation of what you actually owe. You also have the absolute right to know exactly how your interest and your penalties are being calculated behind the scenes. And of course, you always have the right to legal representation to challenge any incorrect claims they make.
Okay, so what if they do cross the line and harass you? Here is your exact blueprint for action, starting from gathering your evidence all the way up to escalating it to the Reserve Bank of India. First up, document literally everything. Log those calls, save the text messages, and write down the exact times of any physical visits. Next, do not just complain over the phone. Send a formal, written complaint to the bank's nodal officer or grievance redressal officer. If the bank just ignores you, you escalate directly to the RBI Integrated Ombudsman Scheme. And if the harassment has caused you serious mental agony or actual financial loss, you have the full power to file a suit in the Consumer Commission for compensation.
Finally, Section 5, Settlement versus Restructuring, Finding Your Way Out. When you're comparing your actual options to get out of this, restructuring is usually much better for your future credit score, whereas a settlement is really more of a last resort if full repayment is just totally impossible. If you choose debt settlement, the bank basically agrees to accept a reduced lump sum as a final payment. It clears the debt, yes, but it leaves a massive, glaring scar on your credit report, making any future borrowing super difficult. Debt restructuring, on the flip side, means the bank modifies your terms. They might convert the balance into easier monthly installments. You do pay the full amount over time, but it has a much less severe impact on your overall credit health.
If you only take away one single thing from this entire explainer today, let it be this. Never, ever rely on verbal promises from recovery agents. Getting everything in writing is your absolute best defense against future disputes. If an agent tells you over the phone that paying half your balance will magically clear your whole account, do not transfer a single rupee until you have that exact offer on official bank letterhead or at least from an official bank email address. Without a written agreement, the bank can simply treat whatever you paid as a partial installment, and they will absolutely continue to chase you for the rest, along with mounting interest.
So, knowing all of this, knowing that the Supreme Court actually stands behind your right to basic dignity, it's time to step out of the fear and start proactively negotiating a real solution. Yes, defaulting on a credit card is incredibly stressful, for sure, but you have a clear, lawful process protecting you. You cannot be bullied, you cannot be arbitrarily arrested, and you have distinct pathways, like restructuring, to slowly rebuild your profile. So I'll leave you with this thought. Instead of avoiding the bank's calls out of pure panic, how will you use the knowledge you gained today to open up a dialogue and finally reclaim your financial peace of mind?